This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Sadly, Pod Squad could not pull it off, couldn't finish the rally. They end up losing in Atlanta 6-5. End up falling in the series 3-1. So good on Atlanta as they are trying to make up for what was a wonky June at large. So good on them for the dub. Meanwhile, we still have one more inning to go in Guardians and Twins. Cleveland up 1-0 right now. Good on you if you were an under-better today. And one more game set to get underway in the next few minutes or so, JBT. I don't know if you had anything, but the Toronto Blue Jays playing host to the Rays today. Shane Bieber going for the home Jays. -104, ever so slight dogs.
Yeah, not exactly a believer if you are backing him today, because you got to be a little shaken in your confidence here. Command has been really, really poor for Bieber since he has come back. But there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. The last two starts, the walks have been there, strikeouts have been there too, and he's kind of evened out. You wonder if most of the inflated ERA that you see here is due to short sample size and one big blow-up. 5.78 ERA. Expected ERAs at 8.56, but a lot of hard contact mixed in here. So maybe at some point you can even this thing out and Bieber can show you a little bit. He did in his last start. Pitched 6 innings against Chicago White Sox, only struck out 6, only walked 2, didn't give up an earned run, Stormy. So maybe a sign of things to come for Bieber, who has now, if you want to extend it out just a little bit more, over his last 10 2/3 and 2 outings, has given up only 2 earned runs, struck out 10 and walked 5. So to me, that's going to be the big question. Will the command get back? Because that is something that has really plagued him here so far in this short amount of sample size that we have seen him out there. Should note the other side is a bullpen day, it would seem, for the Tampa Bay Rays. Legumina, I believe, is how you pronounce Casey's last name. He's going to be out there, but he's just going to start the game, it would seem. He's only gone really 2 innings at most, so trust that pen, a Johnny Holstaff game, as they call it, to get it done. But I don't know, I mean, I think you could maybe make the fringe case that if Bieber and what he's shown over his last 2 starts is a little bit more real, that maybe the Blue Jays are showing a little bit of value, because the underlying metrics for his last start against the White Sox, he had a 0 ERA, obviously, with no earned runs, but even if you factor in the contact and the expecteds, still floating around 2 for that start. So I think you can maybe make the case that there's good things to come.
Run total for the game sitting at 8.5. First pitch from out there at Rogers Center starting in just a few moments. Only 2 more games the rest of the day. We'll preview a little bit later on this hour. We got the Diamondbacks and Cardinals, as well as the Royals and Tigers. Our guy Jensen Lewis, co-host of VSiN by the Books, he actually joined us in the first hour, had plays on both of them. If you want to go back and listen to Money Moves on your own time, you can always download Money Moves in podcast form, listen to that full conversation in its entirety. But for now, let's get into a little bit of college football here, because while, yes, SEC Media Days, I feel like, has been dominating the headlines this weekend, and rightfully so, right? 5 SEC teams last year made the college football playoff. But there was also one from the American Athletic Conference in the Tulane Green Wave. Not sure they will be the squad to get back, but could somebody potentially in a league that's got a lot of parity and change? Last year, the American had 8 teams finish over 500, 5 win at least 9 games, 2 in the CFP final top 25 rankings, and 3 in the AP top 25. Although all of the coaches from those programs, with the exception of Navy, are now gone, taking other jobs elsewhere. So big picture, what do you make of this league, and any standouts for you?
The standout is obviously that I think Navy deserves to be favored where they're at. Seem like they're going to be a pretty good group outside of having to replace what's going on at quarterback. But you kind of trust in these option type attacks that you're going to be able to replace a lot. So I think Navy deserves to be priced where they're at. I think the intrigue is, I don't want to call it the depth of the conference, because that statement means that there's probably a lot of good teams here. But I do wonder if there is a team that you could select that's a little bit farther out to win this thing. Florida Atlantic comes to mind. Florida Atlantic's got a ton of returning production, but you look at what exactly has to happen for FAU, and you've got to cut down on the turnovers. You've got a really difficult schedule, but I wonder how deep you can go in the American, given so much turnover, both in terms of coaching staffs and some of these rosters.
Florida Atlantic they were on my outside looking in as far as the tiers that I go to, but I understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Most returning production, not only for the American, but all G6 programs this year, 19th in the country. The entire staff is back too, right? Like, they have a lot of continuity. I'm just not sure they'll get much better with that schedule. I was actually looking, so Navy is your favorite at the top of the board in the conference and plus 350, but the second shot on the board, UTSA, I feel the best about the Roadrunners going into this year. Jeff Traylor, speaking of some of these teams that have continuity, right? He has really done well in that role the last few years with UTSA. You bring in Western Kentucky's offensive coordinator, Rick Bowie, to help continue to elevate an offense that was already averaging 35.5 points per game last year. Owen McCown is back, yes, off of an injury, but people that you know well and a lot of talent. I know they had a slow start to the year. They went on to score 48 against Tulane last year, 58 against ECU. The whole offensive line is back. Plenty of weapons around him at the skill positions. Top 3 wide receivers back. Will Henderson at running back. This offense is going to be great. Defense, however, only returns 2 starters. And I don't have a ton of faith. I don't think they're going to be super bad defensively, but they're not going to be very good. Yeah. So if they're winning games, they're going to win in shootout fashion. I like UTSA because of this schedule as well, even though they play a tough non-con that includes having to play at Texas inside the conference. Road trip to Tulane, get the Navy and USF games at home. Maybe Tulsa, another team that could be sneaky good, but you avoid Memphis, avoid Army and ECU. There are a lot of things I think to like about UTSA this year.
Yeah, that was going to be my big question. You're talking about a team that was in the 7th percentile in just defensive explosive play rate allowed. They were in the 4th percentile in pass explosive, right? So, but can you constantly be on the right side of some of those coin flips? Because generally, if you're getting into shootouts, those are coin flips, right? High scoring affairs that can go either way. So, can you constantly get that coin to, or at least enough? Can you get it to go heads enough that you're going to be able to win the conference? But it's understandable when you look at it, and you could get a little bit of just bad luck on some of those explosives. So, for example, if you're looking under the hood and you're finding some sort of positives for this team, this is what really killed them. While they were in the single-digit percentile-wise in those 2 categories, Stormy, the UTSA was in the 84th percentile in non-explosive EPA per play by opponents. So, in other words, down to down, when they weren't giving up explosives, they're actually pretty efficient defensively. It's just they would give a backbreaker after backbreaker. So, if you can whittle those down and get it in, I think that I'm with you in the sense of you could probably be a lot better. You also got to get better on early downs. They gave up a lot of short third downs. Their late down success rate was really high, but you can't just constantly rely on those high leverage plays over and over again to go your way.
What I'll say about, though, defenses in this conference in general look to be pretty bad across the board. So it doesn't bother me as much when it comes to the conference schedule with UTSA as it might in another league where they have some more stout defenses. Like Memphis has a complete retool of their roster, and I think they might have the best defense in the league. So just a couple things to think there. Also, if you are like me, and I know we've talked about this when we've been diving into a handful of other teams about setting calendar reminders for certain situations, I mentioned that game at Texas they have to play. That is the week after they play Ohio State, and knowing how good this offense is, like maybe if you're getting a really big number, that could be an opportunity for them to cover coming off of the game for Ohio State for Texas. Same thing for Navy when they play Notre Dame this season. That could be a sneaky spot to bet Navy is a dog too. Sandwich spot for Notre Dame. We talk about how easy the Irish schedule is this year. They play at BYU and before. So this game is right after the BYU game and then right before they host Miami. So right in between those two. So just a couple things for the American. If you're looking to set any calendar reminders for situational spots, those are a couple that came to the forefront going through things this morning.
Does the situational spot be deterred because they do have a bye week Navy going into the Navy game? Or excuse me, Notre Dame has a bye week going into the Navy game. So I think you get a little bit extra time to prepare.
That's
but
true.
to your point, I mean, you're still going to.
Those are their 2 toughest games on their schedule.
I mean, those are the ones if you're Notre Dame, you're circling, right? Because you got Notre Dame and you got Miami. So you've got BYU and you've got Miami. So it's still going to be really difficult. And it's just difficult to prepare for the option in the midst of the season in general. I asked this question to bring it back to the Mountain West for just briefly because I'm writing it. Some of these new teams that are coming in, how difficult it's going to be to all of a sudden now have an Air Force on your regular season schedule.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's worth noting. But can Navy, I'll ask you this, with their schedule, because it seems pretty opportunistic, do you think Navy could be a playoff team?
No, I don't think that the G6 playoff team is coming from the American this year. I just don't.
It's coming from the Mountain West.
Mountain West or Pac-12.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I like UNLV and Boise State. Like those are the 2 teams that I've been eyeing more than anything else for the college football playoff this year.
Got an interesting feeling about those Rebels.
In a good way?
Nah.
No?
Not in a good way.
Don't like that. I will mention, though, the CFP changes this year are important to note for the group of 6 because in past years it's been the highest ranked conference champion, right, from the G6 before you get to the at-larges. This year it's the highest ranked group of 6 team in the CFP rankings regardless of conference champion or not. So that no longer comes into play for the group of 6. That said, when I'm looking to bet this conference, I'm looking to who's going to bet the conference. I'm not looking at CFP odds for any of these teams.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It seems like it's set up for either the Pac-12 or the Mountain West, but worth asking because, I mean,
Blake Horvath
one
just
loss.
means so much, and I don't know what the hell we're going to get from Braxton Woodson? Yeah, Braxton Woodson.
Yeah, Horvath was really good. It is hard to replace that, even though I know, again, an option offense like that, you're getting able to, like, the difference or the ability to replace a guy is probably a little bit easier, but it's still going to be really difficult.
And Woodson was good in spot duty, but like the larger picture of being the guy, I don't know. And is Navy all of a sudden going to fix their pass defense? Because that was a massive flaw for them as well that I'm just not so sure about. That said, I mean, this is a team that's won, double-digit wins each of the last couple seasons. They seem to be trending in the right direction. That's just a massive gap, I think, to fill. Any other team you want to hit on real quickly last night?
No, I just wanted to, I think, again, like to this point of where this conference is at, it does seem like there's a lot of shifting pieces from like third and on. ECU is pretty interesting, but again, talk about some shifting pieces and what you're looking at some of the most important positions. East Carolina is also dealing with those replacements too. So it seems that after Navy, who you feel pretty confident is the best team in this conference, and I know you're high on UTSA, any one of these teams can finish, I believe, in a really dynamic order when you're talking about all the way down to Army, who's got a ton of returning production.
I mean, it's just this league is just so interesting this year, from being what felt like the kind of top dog in the G6 a year ago to all of these new head coaches, so much turnover. There's a lot of unknown, which I think can create some parity. Let's talk about wins, baby, because with Just Win Bets, baby, it's your premier source for daily sports betting picks. They break down the data so you can bet with confidence across the entire sports calendar. If you are watching on YouTube TV or the VSiN Watch app right now, scan that QR code, or you can head over to justwinbetsbaby.com today. Start betting smarter. The name says it all. Absolutely. Covering it all each and every day. We got a sub-site here on Money Moves. When we return, though, keeping it rolling on VSiN, our NFL training camp tour stops in South Beach next.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. With VSiN Pro, you get access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's that time of year in the NFL with training camps getting underway. We, too, here at VSiN are going camping as we welcome you back here to Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. And we are logging some serious, albeit fictitious, miles so far on our NFL training camp tour as it rolls on, going city by city. Reminder, and we just found this out yesterday, if you go to the VSiN Watch app, there's actually going to be a special playlist that will house all of our team-by-team season previews that we do. But let's get set for stop number 4.
Join Stormy and JVT as they go on the Money Moves NFL training camp tour.
Okay, we were in Atlanta yesterday that you dubbed Tua ATL with former Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa signing with the Falcons this offseason. Today we go to see his former team in South Beach. Miami fires Mike McDaniel and GM Chris Greer, bring in longtime Packers exec John Eric Sullivan, who grabbed his guy from Green Bay, Jeff Hafley, to come along. This is not a retool. This is a rebuild for sure entering the 2026 season. You wrote up the AFC East for our VSiN NFL betting guide. What were your big thoughts on this team?
Wrote up the Miami Dolphins in the AFC East. Thank you very much. I mean, honestly, so we did it again in the format of these 3 burning questions that we have. And I think the first question immediately is, what does the second stint as a starter look like for Malik Willis? You look at what he got, 3 years, $67.5 million. He played extremely well in the backup role for the Green Bay Packers the last 2 seasons. In 118 dropbacks, went 70 of 89. That's 78.7%, 972 yards, 10.9 yards per attempt with 6 touchdowns, one turnover-worthy play. Not even just one turnover-worthy play in 118 dropbacks. Way improved from his time in Tennessee. And to reiterate that time, 50.8% completion, Stormy. Yeah. Pass attempts for 4.5 yards per attempt, 3 interceptions. It was just an absolute nightmare. But you do have to ask the question. Insanely small sample size over the course of 2 seasons that were very sporadic and spread out for Malik Willis. Is it legitimate? Is it actually going to be something really good for the Dolphins as you move forward? I think you also asked the question, Bobby Slowick, who's going to serve as the offensive coordinator for Willis this season. Remember, it's amazing how much we flip on guys. Bobby Slowick was the offensive coordinator at the beginning of C.J. Stroud's career, but then he got fired pretty quickly by the Houston Texans. We've seen C.J. Stroud kind of plummet, and now you have this, we'll call it failed offensive coordinator getting second crack at it with a guy that we just don't know if he's legitimately as good as he showed in that time. And I'll also, to invoke the offensive coordinator one more time, he was in LaFleur's system, Malik Willis. That is a really solid system that I think gets the most out of some of their quarterbacks. And I think there might be legit concerns that there is some fool's gold nature to the efficiency and the level of play that we saw from Malik Willis. And that is really a question you can't answer until you see him play over a larger sample size for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, those last two times we saw him in relief of Jordan Love when he had the concussion last year, 27-32, 409 yards, 2 touchdowns in week 16 and 17. But as you said, insanely small sample. What will we do with it? But from offense to defense, you also asked the question in the guide, will the new personnel improve Miami's defense? Last year, finished 24th in scoring defense, giving up around 25 points per game, 22nd in yardage allowed. But Jeff Hafley's Packers defense were obviously great, different talent levels over there, but he'll be the defensive play caller yet again. Expected that at least if there's one area to improve, it would be that side. How do you see it?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's actually kind of college football-esque for the Dolphins in terms of this roster overall. They brought in 30 new players this offseason. So this is almost transfer portal-esque, right, where you're just kind of rebuilding the roster with bodies, and this seems to be the case. You look at it, Josh Uche, David Ojabo brought in to help along the edge. With Chop Robinson, you expect to be kind of their young edge rusher and stud, but it hasn't really panned out so far. Darrell Baker Jr., Lonnie Johnson Jr. were brought in to the secondary, which was really poor last year, so they're really trying to revamp this group. It's hard to be as poor as they were last year. You mentioned some of the base statistics, 27th in opponent EPA per play in 2025, really average in terms of pressure rate and total sacks. So there has to be some sort of improvement just because they were relatively poor. And I'm glad you brought that up with Hafley. So he's going to call the team's defense this season. And it's interesting because we've seen different versions of the Green Bay Packers under Hafley. In 2024, I note in the write-up, they finished 5th in defensive efficiency. In 2025, they were 22nd. So you've had all these different finishes in terms of where they were at. Micah Parsons' injury is part of the reason why there were some issues. I'd also argue, though, as great as Micah Parsons is, I don't know if I want to drop from 4 to 22nd if I'm missing an edge rusher. There should be some stoppage at some point, right? In basketball, when they say stop the ball in transition, you got to stop the ball at some point. So I do wonder what Hafley is going to be. And I don't know about you. I don't know if I'm in love with a first-time head coach at this level, also having to deal with play calling duties as well, especially from a defensive standpoint. So I do have my questions. I know a lot of people didn't like the Hafley hire. There's also Green Bay folks in the front office. They bring in Malik Willis. That's why I mentioned at the start of the show, this kind of like Diet Green Bay.
Yeah.
They're really trying to reimagine to an extent what has made Green Bay so successful, but down here in Miami, because there's a lot of people with ties to that organization. I don't know if that's really going to work. And then you get to, I'm sure we get us up the final question, which is just, how bad is it going to get? Because they have one of the worst schedules in the league.
So let's look at the odds now. So from a win total perspective, sitting at 4.5, you're getting plus money on the over. Only the Arizona Cardinals have a lower win total this year and shorter odds for fewest wins in the NFL. The division wins at 1.5. AFC East 40-1. ESPN Analytics, JVT, gives Miami a 0.6% chance to win the division and a 0% chance to win the Super Bowl. So yes, how bad will they actually be? That strength of schedule in terms of difficulty based on opponent win totals they face, second most challenging in the National Football League with all of the change that we're discussing here.
Yeah, I mean, again, so do I take another crack at this? Last year got burned by this team, had an alt-under of 6.5. Looked like we were going to get there, but ultimately get to 7 wins. Do you go with an alternate under on their win total that's sitting at about 4.5? The strength of schedule is absolutely brutal. Questions about Malik Willis. What if bad Malik Willis shows up? And even if he is relatively decent, the level of talent in terms of the skill positions that he is getting the ball to outside of Devon Achane are immensely different at pass catcher and at wide receiver than what he was working with in Green Bay. There's a lot of negatives here, and there's just not that much talent. There's no true edge rusher, so that's going to be a problem, even with a revamped secondary of a bunch of new bodies, unless Chop Robinson makes like an immense leap. So I would, if you like Miami over like Dave Ross does in our guide, maybe hunt around for some season-long props on Chop Robinson to go over, because they don't really have that over on sacks, I should specify, just because I just think that he's got to emerge if that's going to be something that they're going to be better at, if they're going to shoot for 5 wins. So I don't know, man. I don't mean to be overtly pessimistic, but I do think like 2 wins and top pick in the NFL draft. I pause because I don't remember if they have their first round pick next year. If that's going to be in the cards for them, like floating around that range.
And well, fewest wins market plus 350 as well. Another alternate look that you could do from that standpoint if you think that they are going to underachieve given the schedule that they have in front of them. The one thing, and I don't want to belabor the point about bringing in Malik Willis here and what we know or what we really don't know about Malik Willis at this point in year 4 of his career, but that being in Green Bay, clearly like that leadership group core that has come over believes in him, and they got to see him each and every day. So maybe they see something that in not only the sample size that we've seen on the field, but behind the scenes, somebody that they believe in and think can kind of help this next foray into this iteration of the Miami Dolphins.
It is kind of an interesting timeline, though, isn't it? I mean, I thought that when they signed him, which is, you know, and you always want quarterback, and quarterback's important. So what if he is going to be good and one of the next great quarterbacks of his generation? So there's always that small chance. But to spend on a quarterback in a transition period where you're gutting the roster and really rebuilding from the ground up at almost every single position group, hiring a first-time coach, and not going in the direction of offense as your head coach, too, because that's always the other interesting part is I'm a believer, at least personally, of if I'm starting an NFL team or if I'm building an NFL team, I want to go the direction of the Raiders, which is bring in my quarterback, bring in my offensive-minded head coach that is going to help develop and bring him along. And that's obviously not what the Dolphins are doing here. So you do wonder just the timing and the way they're handling it, too. But it's only 3 years, as I mentioned. So it's one of those things where if it doesn't work out, you can move off him relatively quickly.
I know we've referenced the NFL betting guide a lot, but it's worth noting this isn't something that you can get as a standalone. You do need to be a VSiN Pro subscriber to get all of the guides that we do right now at VSiN, and the betting guide is like the NFL one is the most comprehensive one that we do. There's so many bets from all of our hosts and experts. If you're looking to bet any type of futures, win totals, division races, awards, Super Bowl futures, all of that stuff, it's all in there with favorite plays and explanations. And obviously you wrote up several things as well, but it's really, really great. It's over 100 pages. Unbelievable how much time and effort went into it.
And I'd argue this as part of this as part of this with the Miami Dolphins, very apt choice of words, I would say that you could find them in the range of minus 160 to finish 4th in the division. I think that's a pretty fair price. I'm relatively high on the Jets. I'll put it this way, in the AFC East, of the 4 teams, there was one team that I wrote up the over for, and it was the Jets. So I think that there's a stronger reality than just minus 160, minus 170 that the Dolphins are going to finish 4th in this division. So I would throw that out there as well as a potential future. I know it's kind of a meaty price for a future, but I do think that there's some cheapness to that.
Last thing as we head to break, and I guess it makes sense on a day that we're talking about the Miami Dolphins, we did get some news about Tyreek Hill, who's a free agent right now, continuing to rehab from that brutal leg injury. On a social media post he had yesterday, he said he's feeling good, but he still doesn't know his timeline right now and admitted he has no power still in his leg at this point and is just trying to rebuild it one day at a time. You hear that music? Time to step aside here on Money Moves, but keep it locked right here, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We'll be back in a moment.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Just like the Backstreet Boys, the Circa Survivor documentary is back, bigger than ever, with $18.7 million on the line and a new Grandissimo format raising the stakes. You missed episode 1? Catch it now on YouTube. Just search VSiN Live. Episode 2 airs this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Every agonizing moment of opening weekend, plus the early winners, losers, and storylines shaping the season. Whether you play Circa Survivor or just love the drama, you won't want to miss it. Every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern on VSiN, or catch up anytime on YouTube. Just search VSiN Live.
Back here on Money Moves, Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you, live from downtown Las Vegas at Circa Resort and Casino. I watched episode 1 yesterday.
How many minutes were you in it?
Not many. I had a small role in it, but it was fun to do because it was I got to do the interviews preseason last year with my dad because we signed up together in person and the crew was here that day. So that was kind of fun to see old Rich Bonatoni get a little bit of TV time. Very fun. Make sure you check it out, like JVT said, every Wednesday, but you can also watch on YouTube on demand anytime that you want right now. Also did want to give you a quick update on the 3M Open as that rolls on quickly. Emiliano Grillo, your standalone leader right now at 7 under on the day, had 9 birdies today, including the final hole to snatch that first round solo lead where things sit right now. Plenty of golfers still in action. 4 sitting a stroke back at 6 under, including your favorite and world number 1, Scotty Scheffler. He had a bogey-free day. Keep it up, buddy.
I was going to say, is that why we're updating this?
No. But we might as well look at Tom Kim as well, who's also got his round underway. Oh, he's on the screen right now.
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
2 under so far through 6 right now. And I got a little bit worried the way that he started. Bogeyed second hole of the day, but 3 birdies since. So more of that, Tom Kim. That would be great. So now top 10s and top 20s on him. But we said this was a course where people could go low, and they are at this point. Where's Kitayama at right now? I want to see. Yeah, so he's 3 under right now through 8, your defending champion. And that was one of the questions that we were asking our guest, Mr. Ballingy, yesterday, was whether or not he could still put himself in contention, and looks like it as of now.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of going low, we do have to take a sidetrack very quickly and just say that I think I should take this moment to issue an apology.
Stop. I'm not doing this
to my
with you.
wonderful co-host, Stormy Bonatoni, who earlier in the program, as I put it, I threw a stick in the spokes of her bicycle, as many would do when they were young children. And you went face first and hit the ground, and since then you have been struggling to pick yourself up, and I apologize.
I thought last segment I did well. I thought I rebounded, and then you had to bring it up, and now I'm back on my spiral.
You've been very Eeyore-esque in the breaks, and I apologize.
Well, we also have to, we can't ignore the elephant in the room anymore today, in that I haven't had any coffee, and I think that is probably...
I thought that was a fat joke because I was wearing elephant colors.
Wow, no. That coffee is my fuel, and I didn't have any today because I had to get a snaggletooth fixed this morning.
I offered you an energy
drink. I had a
drink.
chipped tooth this morning, so I've had dental work today, and I feel weird about it too. Like it's not fitting. I mean, no, it fits fine. I have a wonderful dentist. It's the same team dentist as the Golden Knights, by the way, so he knows how to fix a jacked up grill. Okay.
And you're questioning his work?
No. I just have to get used to it because it's a little bit of a different shape than my last tooth.
Let the record show. I offered you caffeine. You didn't want any part of it.
I don't do energy drinks.
I had to, and then I gave it to one of our production crew, Lydia, who then looked at me and was like, "Ugh, did you touch this?" And I was like, "Well, yes, I touched it, but I
don't do energy drinks, and that one looked like one that would taste like carbonated cough syrup, and I'm not into that.
It was great. It's a great tasting energy drink.
I don't know.
Lots of caffeine.
Limits.
A thermogenic, as some would say.
We do have baseball in action right now as well. As we told you earlier, the Braves ended up completing their 3 wins in 4 games against the Padres today. San Diego tried to surge back. They end up losing 6-5. And could we be headed to extras in Cleveland? It was a 1-0 lead for the Guardians. We're now tied at 1 in the 9th inning. See how that shakes out. Toronto, meanwhile, up early on the Tampa Bay Rays in the 2nd.
So I will just point out, because I had this thought, that when you were talking about this game, the Cleveland Guardians and the Minnesota Twins.
Scam Likely giving me a call.
You made a comment. You made a comment that along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, underbetters, good on you. Well, it's 1-1 with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, and we might be heading to extras.
That's true. Anything can happen. Live total is
just saying, if it happens,
is still 3.5 in this game.
If it happens, it would be very funny.
Would it not be the most classic thing?
It's fitting too. What did I show you this morning?
Yeah. Yes.
This morning on my timeline, for whatever reason, the highlight of the Eagles-Rams game popped up, in which there was a blocked field goal that was subsequently returned for a touchdown that caused the Rams to fail to cover, correct?
Yes.
And that harkens back to a time in which Stormy and I were on the air together on a live bet Sunday for that game, to which you called that thing signed, sealed, and delivered. No way the Rams are going to blow this cover.
I had a lot of those moments this year.
To which I told you, I was like, crazier things have happened. And then crazier things happen.
Here's something I've noticed about myself. For games that I have bet, or if I'm around people like yourself, right, and I know what your bets are, I'm never going to make those types of comments for my games or my friends' bets, that type of thing. But a game I don't have anything on, and I have
You'll just throw bleep to the wind and be like, screw these guys.
Making those types of statements. And how many times did it bite me this past year? Like, what was the Davis Mills Texans game?
The Davis Mills Texans come back.
So that's over.
Yep.
I did get away with one. I can't remember. I think it might have been a Jacksonville game. I got away with one where I said it, and then thankfully they ended up saving the day and closing out the win. But yeah, I had a few of those this year. Blame the lack of caffeine as well. Lack of sleep those days.
And then you yelled at me because during that Bills game that they lost to the Dolphins, again, the one I will blame, the reason why I did not get my alt under is because the Bills, I cannot believe how they lost that game. The entire time, I think I kept saying during the shows, like, this might be an in-game opportunity for the Bills. And then you screamed at me because you're like, they're not going to win. And they didn't.
What are you going to do? So sometimes.
Back together this Sunday or this coming football season?
That's rumor has it. We'll be back on Sundays. Potentially, though, and this is a little bit of a tease.
Spam risk.
So that's why I like Scam Likely giving me a call.
Which implies that there's a chance it's not.
True.
Yeah.
Entirely true. And you love answering those phone calls. This I do know.
I do answer political calls because, as we've talked about, yes, I used to be a barista, and that's where Bill 80 found me, but I was also a telemarketer / political calls person at one point in my life, too.
Yes. Which explains a lot about your personality. Mm-hmm. That said, that is, I might actually get more sleep on Sundays, and we can tell you why about that a little bit later on this month. But we do have a couple games in Major League Baseball still to come today. It's a really short slate today. All that is left is the Diamondbacks and Cardinals, as well as the Royals and Tigers. Anything in either one of those games that caught your eye today?
Yes, let's go to the Tigers game really quickly because we have an interesting pitching matchup that we should discuss. For the Detroit Tigers, one Troy Melton will get the start. And as somebody who never watches Disney, but this did stick into my brain, it was Troy Bolton who was the lead character that was played by Zac Efron in High School Musical. The Tigers,
get your head in the game.
Yeah, -2. Is that a phrase that he says?
High School Musical, baby.
Okay, all right. I've never watched any of them. I just knew that was his name.
Get your head in the game. Got to get your head in the game.
Well, Melton does not need to do that because he has been absolutely in the game up to this point. 1.80 ERA. Expected is at 3.03. The dude's been absolutely untouchable. We talked about this with Mike Palm. Let us harken back to June 9th when he gets a start against the Minnesota Twins. Goes 5 innings, gives up 4 earned runs, strikes out 5, though, in the outing. And you're wondering what is to come of him. Since then, he has been absolutely untouchable. Go to the start on June 20th and start the roll from there for him. This has been great watching Melton pitch. Since those starts, a 0.92 ERA, an expected of 2.02, and the market has really caught up with the pricing. So I think you do wonder, Stormy, at what point does the price go a little too far? And do you wonder if maybe there's going to be an opportunity to get this done and maybe play against him? Maybe there is some value in like a plus 190 or near 2-1 on the Royals, just in the inherent, like, hey, the probability is a little bit lower. Pitching, though, you want something, I think, a little bit better to go at him with. Dobnik's going to get the start, but we haven't seen much of him for the Kansas City Royals. It's his 4th appearance. It's his 2nd start. He's pitched just 14 innings. If you buy into the short sample indicators, he's going to get rocked at some point, but we're only talking about 14 innings of work. But just very much worth noting that Troy Melton has definitely been priced. Melton has been really priced into this market here, and it's amazing to see the prices climb on him and a Tigers team that I think the market's really come around on.
I don't know how you segued like Melton and Bolton being similar, but kudos to you.
Well, they're both named Troy, right?
This is yes, but still,
and
like,
they end with Ton?
It's not like his name was Troy Molten.
Right, but it's Troy and Ton. Like, those are the beginning and the end. So, of course, there's that,
This is the first of a 4-game set.
Understand the inner workings of my mind.
Out there in Detroit. The Diamondbacks and Cardinals. Brandon Pfaadt towing the rubber for Arizona against Michael McGreevy. Both guys do give up regular contact. McGreevy a little bit better at limiting the damage, it seems, based on his ERA 2.92. Doesn't seem particularly sustainable, though, from some of the underlying metrics. And the Diamondbacks' bats have been going lately. 66 runs over their last 10 games. Cardinals haven't been great at the plate, but Pfaadt, you imagine, could be a good guy to go against from that standpoint. Had me looking at the total in this game at 7.5. I didn't end up getting there, but that was the one angle I was considering.
Makes a lot of sense to me. By the way, Scotty Scheffler has withdrawn from the tournament.
Shut up. I don't need this energy from you, all right, after what we've already gone through today.
I'm glad you're back on the horse, though. You're back on the horse.
Yesterday when I was doing the best bets talking about Scheffler, how terrible my breakdown was because, like, I know
because you kept your breakdown
stupid.
is not. But no, it's not. That's the thing. So that's what we were arguing about, and that's why you sit here and say you hate me, but I'm actually one of your biggest supporters because I kept telling you yesterday, stop saying that and just present the bet. Because nobody's going to buy into anything when the presenter immediately starts with, this is dumb. No, it's not. He's the best golfer on the planet right now, and he's playing well.
All right. Well, we do have to actually discuss those bets and more
It's a very
as we
supportive 5 seconds from me.
wrap up the day here on Money Moves. You're like my little support animal on the plane,
right.
trying to make sure we get going off and fly away safely. We'll be right back.
Extras.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
An interesting talking point that I have for you, Stormy Buonantony, as we have been talking a lot about the SEC. Media days are currently underway, and large expectations for the Texas Longhorns once again.
Yeah.
Now, we did get some news a couple of minutes ago that the top cornerback of the ESPN Top 300 class that was supposed to be for 2027 just recommitted or reclassified, I should say, to the class of 2026. So the Longhorns have a top cornerback prospect coming in, John Meredith III, number 2 overall, number 1 corner in the class. So he'll reclassify, and Texas is going to get another piece of talent. So it got me thinking about a couple of things. The first of which is, it actually ties into our training camp tour that we are currently embarking on, as the Miami Dolphins are a team that is projected to be one of these teams, Arizona Cardinals among them, potentially in the mix for the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. They just signed Malik Willis to a 3-year deal worth over $60 million. If they are in position to do so, do they draft Arch Manning?
I think you still have to, right? Like, I mean, I don't do you,
At number 1, assuming they get the number 1 overall pick, obviously. Yeah.
Do you think that they're going to be the worst team in the league?
I think there's obviously a very good chance. As we had discussed with the Miami Dolphins, I think there's a shot you could take it like under 2.5 and maybe get there with it. The Cardinals are going to give them a run for their money. But I think the potential rookie of the year, Carson Beck's going to have something to say about that.
Okay.
We'll talk about that when we get there. What you laugh
I was like,
about
that's
that?
a good tease. I was like, we could go down that rabbit hole today.
I like how you
if want.
scoff at that. No, that's a serious thought that has been brought up on Pod
Okay.
of the Futures. Somebody on Instagram mocked me, to which I said, here's my address, bro, let's go. And then they never responded. So.
Well, that sounds like we should definitely go down that rabbit hole tomorrow.
Of
that's
me
a fun
fighting
market
somebody
we
on
can get
Instagram?
into.
Oh,
yes,
Carson Beck,
we could
yeah.
do a whole segment around you trying to fight people, but based on social media
Again, we're here
commentary.
Monday through Friday, 11 to 1,
I'm telling you, you could, yeah, you do. JVT is living for the day that somebody meets him outside the studio. So come on out. You want to fight JVT? He's ready.
Let's have a talk.
He's ready to go.
So
He's working out. But you couldn't pay me to argue with people on social media the way you do, by the way. It's unbelievable.
So much fun.
That said, back to like the core of the issue. I think that if you are in position to have the number 1 overall pick, knowing the class of quarterbacks that are expected to be available based on the seasons everyone is anticipating for them to have. And listen, that could not be the case. How many years have we seen it now where you're touting all of these guys? It ends up being a terrible year, and the guy that you thought was going to be the number 1 overall pick wasn't. But if they live up to the expectations that they have, and you think that could be the cornerstone of your franchise in the future, I don't think Malik Willis is holding you back from that.
So my other question here is tying into it is, will Arch Manning, who is projected to still potentially be the top overall pick in the NFL draft this next year, will he be entering the draft as a national champion? What do we buy? We haven't talked much throughout these SEC days. We have not talked much about Texas. And
well, that's because the reason that I haven't talked about Texas yet is because we've been kind of going day by day with the teams that are speaking.
Sure.
And today was when we heard from Sark and everybody. So maybe tomorrow we can do a deeper dive in on Texas and who we think is going to win the SEC this year.
And to your point, they're very high up in our top 25.
Correct.
So we will get to them at length.
Yes. So we've talked about a lot of other teams so far, but not necessarily the top dogs as much. And I am very high on Texas this year. And I think a lot of people are, and the odds would indicate that as well. And Arch is your Heisman favorite, all of those things. I think a lot of the things that held this offense back a season ago was up front with the offensive line. And it took a little while for Arch to ease into being the guy, too. And I've already seen some comments just coming through on X today from Sark saying a lot of the criticism and eyeballs and pressure that he had on him a year ago would have crushed a lot of people mentally. But he really did a good job staying away from it. Maybe it's because of his family, kind of keeps the main thing at the core of this and stays off of social media largely. But the last 10 games of the season, he put together one of the most productive stretches for a quarterback in the country. So if he can pick up where he left off during that span, he finished top 15 in all of college football, passing touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, QBR, touchdown interception ratio, all the things you want. We know he's got talent around him. We know he's like that at large what this team is going to be a good football team. But can you work out some of the kinks, I think, is the big question.
Pretty fascinating year for the conference overall, because I think one could argue that the Big Ten is now the premier conference. Could you not?
Well, that's certainly what a lot of people have had to say based on the last 3 national champions coming out of the Big Ten. I'll tell you, though, mouthpiece of the conference these days, Nick Saban, Alabama head coaching
Surely he
legend.
disagrees.
He doesn't feel the same.
We are so good. Everybody makes a big deal out of being able to beat us. I don't mean they're better than us, and it doesn't mean that just because you win the championship that you have a better conference. It just means you have one better team. We had 5 teams in the playoffs last year. I think we'll have that many teams in the playoffs again. They have to play each other, and it's a special thing with a special team who has things go their way.
You know how you always say hockey fans are sensitive?
Mm-hmm.
I think SEC fans are a lot more sensitive.
You think? Yes.
But that has been the big talking point, right? Has the Big Ten established themselves as the dominant power because of what they've been able to do, winning national championships? And it's Ohio State and Michigan. And obviously last year, Indiana goes from the losingest program in all of college football to winning it all, and the turnaround that Curt Cignetti had. But big picture, like, look at the odds board right now for who's going to win a national championship again this year. You don't see your first SEC team until tied for 3rd on the board.
Correct. And I also think, too, I mean, just the overall depth of the conference, the worst teams versus the worst teams, how they match up. And from a power rating perspective, I do believe the Big Ten's probably got some more depth to it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that it is if you're looking at the who's the best team going to come from in college football, we don't know. It could be any of those leagues. But if you're asking who has the most depth of those Power 4 conferences in terms of, like, can contend for college football playoff spots, it is the SEC.
Yeah. And this kind of leads into best bets to an extent, if you want, because I do have a future.
Oh, yeah, do you have some today? Sorry.
In regards to the SEC. Well, just tie into it to what we're talking about here. So Alabama to win the SEC at plus 850. That'll be as part of the guide of our host best bets that we'll have too, something that I've currently added as well. But I also think there's some national championship upside here to Alabama too. We talked about them as part of our top 25, which is why I kind of saved it for today. But I do think that there is a pretty good shot that you can replace Ty Simpson with Keelan Russell and maybe, I shouldn't even say miss a beat, but improve on what you were last year, especially when it comes to your running game. Yeah. I really like this team defensively. I think the schedule at least offers some opportunity that you could take advantage of. And I think that, going back to our wonderful conversation about beefing with folks on social media, one of my favorite beefs was one of our listeners from Alabama did not like the fact that when Nick Saban decided to retire, I brought up, I was like, I don't know, man, is it really going to be that fun for a recruit to not play under Nick Saban, and you're going to have to convince these guys to go play in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, when you're making your money everywhere else? And but I think they hit it out of the park with DeBoer, who's a very good coach. So I think that some of this heat that he is somewhat getting is a little too much. I think he's going to be a pretty good coach going forward, as we know, and the development of quarterback has been great, and the track record has been great. So I think he's going to get it with Russell. I think the defense is good, and I think they've got an opportunity to win this SEC. So I like Georgia a ton, but I think I'm more in the sense of Gunnar Stockton to win the Heisman to play that. And I think if we're talking about value of plus 850, I think that's worth it for Alabama.
And listen, this is a team that last year made it to the SEC title game, but I'm glad you brought up the run game, because what did we see in that SEC championship game? The entire talking point after that game was the -3 yards on the ground that we saw from the Tide in that game. And that's something that for years when we've talked about the Crimson Tide, it's about physical, bruising football team, run through a wall, literally, not literally, but, the running game specifically, the way that they run has been a huge part of the identity of this program for years and years and years, and it wasn't. And can they get back to that, I think, is a huge question. I mean, some of the FBS rankings for them last year, rushing yards per game, 125th in FBS, yards per rush, 126th. That's not what you're looking for.
Yeah. I have something to address if you'd like. Yeah. Speaking of social media, which we love so much.
What did someone say to you?
No, this is fine. It's not really toward me, because we talked about the St. Louis Cardinals earlier today. Eagle Marine checked in and said, I'm not sure what the deal is with all the McGreevy fading for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's gone 6 innings in his last 4 starts, given up 0, 2, 1, 1 earned runs. He fields his position, see no reason to rely on underlying metrics to prove he's a bum. Michael McGreevy, if you're talking about the underlying metrics here, they would paint a picture of some regression coming at some point. 2.92 ERA, a 5.33 expected, and a 4.14 fielding independent. To answer the question, those underlying metrics, he's given up a ton of hard contact. So a lot of those paint that picture. But to that point, and we've talked about this at least on this show a ton, trying to catch that falling knife of going against some guys that tend to pitch to contact a little bit, they'll have some of those discrepancies. He's a ground ball guy that lets his defense work, and I've espoused a lot that I have trouble kind of differentiating between, all right, blindly trying to play with these metrics while also just looking at some guys whose profile is just pitching to contact and giving up some of that contact as long as it's down. And that's what McGreevy's done to this point. We should also point out, like, last year it wasn't great, but I think that's the logic behind it at the very least, Mr. Marine.
Well, that's why I said, like, especially when you look at the expected ERA and some of those numbers, he's done a good job, as I termed it, limiting the damage to this point. But how sustainable is that? I don't know. And I like the catch the falling knife verbiage for it. It's just like, when is the right time to go against him and see when it catches up with him, if it catches up with him.
You ever play that game?
Haven't gotten there yet. Dude, not
what
with
is that called?
Not with a knife. Yeah, where you do it around each finger for our radio audience. You have? With
one
a
time.
knife?
Yeah, one time.
No, but
money on the line.
To give you a look into my childhood, my brother did that to me with a fork, and let's just say it didn't end well.
Is that where that scar's from?
Well, actually, no, but
You know, I'm glad my apology worked out. I'm glad that you
we did
pepped
end
back
on a
up.
high note.
There you go.
Ended on a high note. Don't go anywhere. Follow the money coming up next. Pauly Howard and John Jastrzemski filling in for Mitch today. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place.
See ya.